Have you ever noticed that sometimes prayer feels powerful and other times it feels empty? That's because not all prayer is the same. Neville Goddard revealed a shocking truth. Most people aren't really praying. They're worrying out loud. They call it prayer, but it's actually fear disguised as faith, and that difference changes everything. The law of assumption shows us that prayer isn't about words, rituals, or begging. It's about the state you carry while you pray. One state calls forth miracles, the other repeats the same painful reality. Imagine the difference between saying, "I hope it happens," and declaring, "It is already mine." One leaves you waiting, the other transforms your world. In this message, you'll discover how to recognize when you're praying with fear and how to shift into conviction, the kind of true prayer that makes the unseen more real than the seen. Because the truth is simple. Life doesn't give you what you ask for, it gives you who you are when you ask. Most people don't realize this. Every prayer has a root. It either springs from faith or from fear. When someone prays, they are not just speaking words, they are standing in a state of being. That inner state, whether peaceful or desperate, is what gives life to the prayer. Neville Goddard's teachings remind us that the inner world always shapes the outer. Think about the difference between asking with calm assurance and begging in panic. The first carries quiet strength, the second carries doubt. Both are prayers, but they call forth different realities. Conscious creation depends on which state you embody. Prayer with conviction aligns you with manifestation truth, while praying with fear reinforces the problem. Imagine someone facing financial stress. If they pray in fear, their thoughts circle around unpaid bills, sleepless nights, and the feeling of lack. They may say, "Please don't let me fail," but the mental picture is failure. That prayer rehearses the problem instead of dissolving it. Fearful prayer keeps the cycle alive. Now imagine another person in the same situation. They pause, breathe, and whisper inwardly, "I already am provided for." There is no begging, only quiet certainty. This is prayer with conviction. It assumes the wish fulfilled and lives in the end. The difference is not the words spoken, but the state embodied when speaking them. This is why Neville Goddard teachings highlight the law of assumption. To assume from fear is to assume lack. To assume from faith is to assume abundance. Both are seeds planted in the soil of imagination. Fear waters weeds, conviction waters fruit. The harvest depends on which seed you nurture with attention. We've all heard prayers that sound holy but tremble underneath. The voice cries out, yet the heart is filled with worry. That kind of prayer doesn't move mountains, it magnifies them. Because imagination creates reality, the inner picture decides the outcome. Fearful imagination always sketches lack in bold strokes. The truth is that both fear and faith are forms of belief. Fear believes in loss before it arrives. Faith believes in fulfillment before it appears. Fearful prayer makes you live the problem twice, once within, then again in life. Prayer with conviction lets you live the solution twice, first inside, then in the world. Look at how children ask. A child says, "Dad, I want ice cream." With absolute certainty it will happen. No hesitation, no doubt. That's conviction in its purest form. Adults, on the other hand, often pray with hesitation, expecting disappointment. But the universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to the certainty behind them. So ask yourself, when you pray, where are you standing? In the state of lack, pleading and trembling? Or in the state of fulfillment, calm and assured? One is prayer versus fear. The other is true prayer. Both bring results, but their outcomes are worlds apart. The state you occupy shapes the world you enter, and this is only the beginning. Once we see that prayer is not about words, but about states, everything shifts. Neville Goddard revealed that true spiritual awakening starts here. Prayer is not convincing God. It is aligning yourself with the conviction that it is already done, which leads us into the essence of true prayer itself. Prayer, as Neville Goddard taught, is not about convincing some distant power to listen. It's about embodying the answer before it appears. To beg is to confess you don't yet have. To assume the wish fulfilled is to declare that you already do. The law of assumption makes this clear. What you inwardly accept as true is what you outwardly live. Imagine someone praying for love. If they beg, they feel the loneliness even more deeply, rehearsing the absence. But if they assume the wish fulfilled, they feel the warmth of companionship, as if it's already present. The difference is subtle, but the outcome is life-changing. Conviction creates alignment with the unseen. Neville explained that true prayer is an inner act of acceptance. It is not frantic words, but a calm surrender into a new identity. The moment you can feel yourself as the one who already has, the prayer is complete. Conviction is the seal, the quiet certainty that makes the unseen more real than the seen. Think of it like trying on clothes. When you put on a new jacket, you don't beg for it to fit. You assume it does. You walk, move, and live in it naturally. Prayer with conviction works the same way. You try on the new reality and wear it inwardly until it feels like yours. This is why Neville Goddard teachings insist that prayer is not repetition, but transformation. Begging repeats the state of lack. Conviction transforms the state into fulfillment. When you pray with conviction, you are not asking for change. You are stepping into change. You live in the end before the end arrives. Notice how the body responds. A fearful prayer leaves tension in the chest and heaviness in the breath. A prayer with conviction leaves a gentle calm, even a smile. The body knows when the inner world has shifted. Feeling is the secret, and conviction is what plants that feeling firmly in place. Consider the phrase "I am." To say "I am loved" with conviction creates resonance in the soul. To say it in doubt creates dissonance. The difference isn't in the words, but in the power of assumption carried with them. Conviction makes the statement alive, while fear makes it hollow. Many people believe prayer requires struggle, but Neville showed it is actually rest. True prayer is resting in the awareness that the work is already finished. Conviction doesn't strain, it settles. It is the quiet knowing that life responds to inner certainty. The more you rest, the faster reality aligns. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He doesn't stand over the soil begging the plants to grow. He trusts the process, knowing the harvest is certain. Conviction in prayer is the same. It's the trust that the unseen is already unfolding. Begging is staring at the dirt. Conviction is expecting the bloom. So when you pray, the key is not in pleading but in assuming. To feel the wish fulfilled is to align with the answer now. Conviction pulls the future into the present, turning hope into reality. And once this becomes clear, the question arises, what happens when prayer is ruled by fear instead? When someone prays in fear, they often don't notice what they're actually doing. Instead of stepping into the solution, they replay the problem in vivid detail. The words may sound like a request for help, but the imagination is full of lack. And since imagination creates reality, what's rehearsed inside soon echoes outside. Picture a person saying, "Please don't let me lose my job." The surface seems like prayer, but underneath they are picturing the boss calling them in, the panic of bills, the shame of failure. Every word comes wrapped in the image of loss. That inner rehearsal becomes the magnet that draws more of the same. Neville Goddard explained that praying with fear is like rehearsing a play you never want to perform, but end up starring in anyway. Each time you replay the worst-case scenario, you are casting yourself in it again and again. The law of assumption doesn't ask if you like the role, it simply manifests what you embody. This is why fearful prayer feels exhausting. The more you ask, the more tired you become, because the focus is still on the absence. It's as if someone is staring at an empty plate and begging for food, but never picturing the meal. The absence takes center stage, and the solution remains off-screen. Think of worry as a form of prayer. When someone constantly imagines accidents, rejection, or poverty, they are actually affirming those things with conviction. They are using the power of assumption, but in reverse. This is the hidden danger. Fearful prayer is still powerful, but it creates the very thing one hopes to avoid. We often hear people say, "I've been praying for years, but nothing changes." In truth, what hasn't changed is the state. They've prayed with fear, rehearsing the lack every day, and then wondered why abundance never comes. The inner world hasn't shifted, so the outer world has no choice but to reflect the same story. Neville's teachings point out that true prayer is never about begging for rescue. It's about assuming the rescue already happened. Fearful prayer, however, keeps the person chained to the problem. It's like asking for sunlight while standing in the shadows, but refusing to step out. Until the state changes, the prayer repeats itself endlessly. Imagine someone praying for healing but picturing themselves sick. They see the hospital, the pain, the struggle. Even though they ask for health, what they rehearse is illness. Their imagination is already living in the state of sickness, and the law of assumption faithfully mirrors it. The prayer becomes a loop of suffering. It takes honesty to notice this. Most people don't admit that their prayers are filled with fear. They focus on the words they say out loud. But the true prayer is the inner picture. That picture speaks louder than any spoken sentence. The universe responds not to words, but to conviction wrapped in feeling. And this is where the turning point begins. Once someone recognizes the trap of fearful prayer, they also discover the possibility of another way. For if prayer with fear rehearses the problem, then prayer with conviction rehearses the solution. And that's where we move next, into the way people unknowingly repeat the state of not having. So many people approach prayer with a trembling heart, not realizing that desperation itself is the problem. They believe the intensity of pleading makes the prayer stronger, but in truth it only repeats the state of lack. To beg is to confess, I don't have. And what you declare you don't have, the law of assumption makes sure you continue not to have. Imagine someone saying, please God, give me money. Beneath those words is the unspoken cry, I don't have money. Each repetition of that prayer reinforces poverty in the imagination. Instead of assuming abundance, the person assumes lack more deeply. Their inner world becomes a constant echo of not enough, and life mirrors it back faithfully. Neville Goddard's teachings reveal that this is why prayers often seem unanswered. It's not that the universe is ignoring them, it's that they never left the state of wanting. Desire itself isn't wrong, but staying in the vibration of wanting without moving into fulfillment is what traps a person in endless longing. Think of it like running on a treadmill. The person is moving, sweating, and putting in effort, but they remain in the same place. Desperate prayer feels active but goes nowhere. The inner world never shifts from absence to possession, and so the outer world has no new image to reflect. Many unknowingly treat prayer like a transaction. They think if they repeat it enough times, God will be persuaded to act. But this mindset overlooks Neville's truth. Prayer is not about convincing, but about assuming. Desperation reveals disbelief. Conviction reveals trust. The more you beg, the more you prove to yourself that you don't yet believe. Look at how people talk about relationships. Someone prays, please let them love me. But what they are really affirming is that love is missing. Every desperate word creates another day of loneliness. The prayer might be sincere, but the state behind it is saturated with not having. That is what imagination creates reality out of. This explains why frustration grows. The more one prays with desperation, the more they notice the lack, and the cycle deepens. It's like shouting in a canyon. The echo of absence returns louder each time. The person thinks, why won't it happen for me? But the answer is hidden in the state they refuse to leave. Neville described true prayer as living in the end, but desperation never reaches the end. It stays stuck in the beginning. It's like someone rehearsing only the first scene of a play, never moving to the finale. They live in I need rather than I have, and so the story of need repeats without end. When you pray with desperation, you may feel emotional release in the moment, but it rarely shifts reality. That release is not conviction, it's a cry of lack. Conviction feels quiet, calm, and certain. Desperation feels restless, noisy, and repetitive. The fruits of each state are worlds apart, and life will always reveal which one you carried within. The good news is that once this is recognized, everything can change. For if desperation guarantees more of the same, then conviction guarantees transformation. The choice lies in the state you choose to occupy when you pray. And to see this difference clearly, we now move into what conviction in prayer truly looks like. Conviction in prayer is not loud or dramatic. It doesn't demand, cry, or beg. It is a steady assurance, the quiet voice inside that says, it's already mine. Neville Goddard called this the essence of true prayer, assuming the wish fulfilled, stepping into the inner world where the desire is already reality, and resting there with calm confidence. Imagine someone praying for health. Instead of pleading, please heal me, they inwardly see themselves strong, smiling, walking freely. They feel the joy of restored strength even while the body still aches. That calm picture, repeated in imagination, carries more power than 1,000 frantic words. Conviction lives in the unseen, not in desperate noise. This kind of prayer is like a seed planted in fertile soil. The farmer doesn't scream at the ground, demanding growth. He trusts the process. He knows the harvest is already contained in the seed. Conviction mirrors that trust. It's the assurance that what's planted in imagination must unfold in reality. No rush, no panic, just certainty. Quiet confidence has a texture you can feel. It's the exhale after worry, the subtle smile when no one else understands. Conviction is calm because it already sees the end as complete. There's no need to repeat the request over and over. The answer feels settled. That's why Neville said, feeling is the secret. Frantic pleading, on the other hand, keeps the mind agitated. It's like splashing in a pool, hoping to calm the water. The more you thrash, the more turbulence you create. Conviction is sitting still, letting the water become clear again. One carries rest, the other carries restlessness, and the results follow the state. Think of a mother who knows her child is safe. She doesn't call every second to make sure. She rests in trust. That's the energy of conviction in prayer. It rests. Pleading is the opposite. It's like calling 10 times an hour, proving you don't trust. The prayer may sound religious, but the vibration is doubt. Conviction doesn't mean ignoring appearances. It means refusing to bow to them. Even if the outer world says no, conviction keeps saying yes. It doesn't fight reality, it transcends it. Neville's law of assumption teaches us that outer facts are shadows of inner states. Conviction holds the inner state steady until the shadow changes. You can test this for yourself. Try closing your eyes tonight and imagining one simple scene that proves your desire fulfilled. Feel it as though it's true right now. Notice the shift in your body, the calmness that comes. That's conviction taking root. It's small at first, but the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The truth is, conviction is not loud, it's steady. It doesn't always look impressive on the outside, but inside it carries power. While others may cry out in desperation, the one with conviction carries peace. And peace is magnetic. Life bends more easily to calm certainty than to restless demand. So prayer with conviction is not about trying harder. It's about resting deeper. It is about embodying the end as though it were already here. And once you taste that quiet confidence, you realize prayer was never about begging. It was about becoming. From here, the question is, how can someone practically begin to pray this way? Neville Goddard always emphasized practicality. He didn't just speak about lofty spiritual truths. He gave methods anyone could use. One of his most powerful practices was simple: calm the mind. Then imagine a scene that would only be true if your desire were already fulfilled. This shifts prayer from words into living experience. Think about how most people pray. They rush in with worry still racing through their bodies, whispering desperate requests. That state only amplifies the fear. But if you take a moment to breathe, to let the body soften, something changes. The mind quiets, and in that stillness, imagination becomes more vivid and alive. For example, if you desire financial freedom, don't beg for money. Instead, picture yourself checking your bank account and smiling at the balance. Feel the ease of paying bills without hesitation. Imagine the relief and joy in your body. That scene proves the prayer is answered, not in the future, but now, in your inner world. Neville called this living in the end. It's not about imagining endlessly. It's about experiencing one moment that confirms your desire as complete. A handshake after a business deal, a hug from a loved one, the sound of laughter in a new home. Small scenes carry immense power when felt with conviction. This practice works because imagination creates reality. By experiencing the end within, you plant the seed of that reality in consciousness. Outer circumstances may not shift instantly, but the inner shift begins to rearrange the unseen. Conviction isn't about forcing, it's about trusting that the unseen always gives birth to the seen. You might wonder, what if my mind wanders? That's natural. Simply return to the scene. Treat it like watching your favorite movie. You don't get angry when you miss a moment. You rewind and replay. The more you rehearse the scene, the more real it feels. And soon, it becomes second nature. Some people find it easier to imagine through senses. Smell the coffee in your new kitchen. Feel the pen signing the contract. Hear the congratulatory words of a friend. The more senses you involve, the deeper the conviction. Feeling is the secret, and imagination is the bridge that makes it tangible. This method transforms prayer from begging into becoming. Instead of hoping something will happen, you live as though it already did. You carry the gratitude, relief, and joy within you, and that energy shifts how you walk through the world. Others may not see it yet, but the change is undeniable inside you. The beauty of this practice is its simplicity. No elaborate rituals, no endless repetitions, just stillness, imagination, and conviction. The moment you feel the wish fulfilled, the prayer is complete. You don't need to repeat it anxiously. You rest in the assurance that what you experienced within is already alive. And as you rest in that inner reality, you begin to notice something remarkable. The feeling itself becomes evidence. Gratitude, relief, and joy appear first inside, long before they manifest outside, which leads us directly to the next truth. That feeling is the evidence that prayer has touched reality. Neville Goddard made it clear, the proof of prayer is not found in outer signs at first, but in inner feeling. When a person truly assumes the wish fulfilled, they can feel gratitude, joy, or relief, as though the desire is already theirs. That inner atmosphere is the first evidence. It signals that the state has shifted. Think of someone who has prayed for healing. Even before their body shows change, they feel lighter, more at peace, and more confident. That emotional shift is not just in their head. It is the law of assumption at work. The inner world is already living in wholeness, and the outer world must eventually reflect it. Gratitude is one of the clearest signs. When you feel thankful before the evidence appears, it means your imagination has already accepted the new reality. Gratitude is not forced. It rises naturally when conviction settles in. It's the quiet thank you whispered in the soul because you know it is done. Relief is another. How many times have people prayed desperately, then opened their eyes only to feel the same tension as before? That is not true prayer, but when you pray with conviction, you feel the burden lift, the chest loosen, the breath deepen. Relief is the sign that your prayer has touched the unseen. Joy, too, can appear almost instantly. Not the joy of a wild celebration, but a soft, steady gladness. It's the smile you can't explain, the warmth in your heart that tells you something has shifted. Neville called this the secret of feeling, because once you feel it, the outcome is inevitable. Consider the opposite. Fearful prayer leaves heaviness behind, as if the problem just grew larger. That is evidence that the prayer rehearsed lack instead of fulfillment. The emotional residue always tells the truth. Feeling is like a spiritual compass. It shows whether you have aligned with the end or stayed trapped in the beginning. This is why Neville insisted on testing the feeling. He encouraged people not to measure prayer by appearances, but by inner conviction. Did you feel it real? Did you touch the end in imagination until joy or gratitude appeared? If yes, the prayer is complete. If not, the work is not finished. A useful practice is to sit quietly after prayer and check, do I feel lighter or heavier? Do I feel calm or anxious? The answers reveal whether you have prayed with conviction or with fear. The inner world always broadcasts the truth before the outer world catches up. When gratitude, relief, or joy fill you, you know the seed has been planted. You don't need to check the soil every day. You trust the process. That inner evidence is enough. It is the law of assumption guaranteeing that what you felt inwardly will bloom outwardly in its own perfect time. And this naturally leads to a challenge, because sometimes the outer world shows the opposite of what you felt. Yet Neville taught that conviction doesn't waver when appearances contradict. The unseen rules the seen, and true prayer knows how to remain steady until the outer must bow to the inner. One of Neville Goddard's most powerful lessons was this: outer appearances are not the final authority. They are echoes, shadows of states already assumed. When you pray with conviction, the outer world may still look unchanged at first, but that does not mean nothing has shifted. The unseen always comes before the seen. Think of planting a seed. For days, maybe weeks, the soil looks the same. If you judged by appearance alone, you might think nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, life is already at work. Prayer works the same way. Conviction knows that just because the eyes don't see it yet, the roots are still growing. Many give up too soon. They pray with conviction once, then glance around and see no immediate result. Doubt creeps in and they slip back into fear. This is like digging up the seed to check if it's sprouting. Conviction holds steady. It doesn't waver at the first contradiction. It rests in the inner knowing. Imagine someone praying for reconciliation. The next day, the person they prayed for seems colder than ever. A fearful heart says, it didn't work. But conviction says, this is temporary. The unseen is unfolding. That inner steadiness allows reality to shift, while fear cancels the process before it matures. Neville's law of assumption insists you live in the end, not in the appearances of the middle. If you see lack, but feel fulfillment, you stay with fulfillment. The outer world has no choice but to catch up. Feeling is the secret, and conviction is the anchor that keeps you steady while the tide turns. Life often tests this truth. Bills may pile up even after praying for abundance. Symptoms may linger even after praying for health, but appearances are only old states echoing back. Conviction refuses to bow to them. It knows that imagination creates reality, and the unseen is stronger than the facts of yesterday. You can think of appearances as smoke from a fire. By the time you see it, the flame has already been burning elsewhere. The inner state is the flame, the outer appearance is the smoke. Conviction focuses on the flame, not the smoke, because it knows which one truly shapes the future. A calm confidence develops when you understand this. You stop chasing signs, stop panicking over delays, and start resting in assurance. Conviction doesn't need proof, it is proof. When the inner world feels settled, the outer must eventually bow. It's only a matter of sequence, not of possibility. Notice the peace that comes when you adopt this mindset. You no longer need to argue with reality, no longer wrestle with how or when. Conviction frees you from the tyranny of appearances. You stand firm in the end, and life rearranges itself to meet you there. And as conviction steadies you through contradictions, subtle confirmations begin to show up, tiny hints that reality is bending. These are not coincidences, but signs of alignment. And that brings us to the next stage, how to recognize the signs that true prayer is already working in your life. One of the first signs that true prayer has taken root is inner peace. Even before anything changes outside, a calmness settles within. The mind stops racing, the body feels lighter, and the heart rests. This peace is not the result of seeing proof, it is the cause. Neville Goddard taught that the inner world must shift first, and peace is the evidence of that shift. Another sign is the quiet disappearance of anxiety, where once there was worry, now there is trust. Imagine someone who prayed for financial relief. They may not have received a windfall yet, but the constant knot in their stomach begins to ease. That release is a signal. The state has moved from fear to faith, from begging to conviction. Small shifts in daily life also appear. Perhaps someone offers unexpected help, or a conversation aligns in a surprising way. These may seem minor, but they mirror the new state assumed in prayer. Neville explained that the bridge of incidents always begins with small steps. They are the universe whispering, "It is already unfolding." Think of someone who prayed for love. Suddenly they notice more kindness from strangers, more warmth in their environment. It may not be the relationship yet, but it is the atmosphere of love appearing around them. These subtle reflections confirm that their inner state is projecting outward. The mirror has begun to change. Joy is another clear sign, not explosive celebration, but a steady gladness that lingers. You may find yourself smiling for no obvious reason, feeling a gentle excitement about life. That is the soul's way of saying the prayer has touched reality. Feeling is the secret, and joy is one of its purest forms. Conviction also changes how you speak. Listen closely to your words after prayer. Are you still talking about lack, or are you speaking as though it's already done? When true prayer works, your language shifts naturally. You say things like, "It's on the way," or "I feel free already." Words follow states, not the other way around. Another sign is patience without struggle. You no longer feel the need to force or chase. You stop obsessing over the outcome because you know it is inevitable. That relaxed patience is powerful. It shows that the law of assumption has already planted the result within, and you're simply waiting for it to bloom. Even the way you see problems changes. What used to trigger panic now barely stirs you. A bill arrives, and instead of fear, you smile and say, "Provision is already mine." That reframe is not denial, it's conviction. It proves that the state of already having has replaced the state of not enough. Pay attention also to synchronicities, those so-called coincidences that begin to appear. A book falls into your hands at the right time, or a phrase someone speaks echoes your prayer. These little nods from the universe confirm alignment. They are reminders that imagination creates reality and that your assumption is already rippling outward. And as these signs gather, peace, joy, patience, small shifts, you realize something profound. You no longer wonder if it's working. You know. The state itself becomes the answer. And from this knowing comes the final step, praying as the one who already received, declaring "I am," and letting the world echo your faith. Neville Goddard's teachings bring us here to the essence of true prayer. To pray as if you already received is to step fully into identity. You are no longer asking, you are being. You don't say, "I will be healed." You say, "I am whole." You don't say, "Someday I'll prosper." You say, "I am abundant." Conviction makes those words alive. The phrase "I am" is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. Whatever follows those two words becomes the state you embody. If you say, "I am lacking," life will echo it. If you say, I am fulfilled, life bends to reflect it. This is conscious creation at its core, assumption carried in identity, not in distant hope. Praying as the one who already received feels natural, almost effortless. It's not straining to believe, it's resting in identity. A person who has food doesn't beg for dinner, they sit down and eat. In the same way, when you assume the wish fulfilled, you live from possession, not from need. That is the law of assumption in action. This way of praying transforms the inner world. You carry yourself differently. Your words soften, your posture shifts, your energy glows. People around you notice the change before you even speak. Why? Because imagination creates reality, and the state of I am radiates through everything you do. Praying as though it is done also breaks the cycle of endless repetition. You no longer feel the need to pray the same request every night. Instead, you revisit the feeling of fulfillment until it becomes your dwelling place. Prayer is no longer an act you perform, it's a state you live in. Consider the example of someone desiring love. Instead of saying, "Please let me find someone," they embody, "I am loved." They walk through life with the quiet glow of companionship already present. The world responds to that conviction by mirroring it back. Love doesn't have to be chased, it is assumed and then revealed. Neville often said that living in the end is the secret. That means you go straight to the outcome and rest there. Don't linger in the how or the when. The end is the prayer. When you can feel it real, the path unfolds naturally, piece by piece, guided by the unseen. This practice also deepens spiritual awakening. You realize that prayer is not a negotiation with God, but recognition of your oneness with Him. Declaring I am is aligning with the divine I am within. Prayer then is not reaching upward, it is expanding inward, letting divinity express itself through assumption. The world becomes a mirror of faith. If you walk in I am provided for, circumstances start rearranging to confirm it. If you embody I am free, opportunities for freedom appear. The outer world always echoes the inner declaration, just as Neville taught. The key is consistency, living as the one who already received. And when you practice this way of praying, life itself transforms. Prayer stops being an emergency button and becomes your constant state of being. You walk as though the wish fulfilled is not only real, it is you. And the world, faithful as ever, bends to reflect your faith. So now the question rests in your hands. When you pray, are you rehearsing the problem or embodying the solution? Are you crying out in fear or resting in conviction? Neville Goddard's teachings remind us that true prayer is not begging, it is assuming the wish fulfilled, declaring, I am, and letting the world echo your faith. Take a moment to reflect. What would change in your life if you began to pray as the one who already received? What would shift if gratitude and relief became your evidence instead of worry and waiting? The answer is closer than you think, because it's already alive within you. Start tonight. Enter the calm, choose conviction, and feel the end as real. Live in that state until it becomes natural. This is conscious creation, the true power of assumption. And as you practice, watch how the outer world bends to reflect your inner world. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking deeper into the truth of manifestation. Because the journey doesn't end here. This is only the beginning of your awakening.